Welcome to San Antonio Independent School District's STAAR Update modules. The Office of Academics and School Leadership is excited to present new changes to the Texas Education Agency's STAAR assessment in this three-part series. You are currently watching Module 2 of 3, titled, What to Expect in Your Student's Classroom. This module will provide SAISD parents with an overview of classroom instructional routines that students will engage in that will prepare them for the new STAAR item types. Please reference Module 1 for an overview of the new changes to the STAAR. One of the changes that was discussed in Module 1 is the inclusion of new item types to the STAAR that are non-multiple choice and interactive. We are excited about these changes because the new item types will engage students with a wide variety of high-interest items, allow students to more actively demonstrate proficiency in the standard, and positively impact instruction and student learning. Some of the item types that students will practice in the classroom and will be assessed on during the fall of 2022 are the following: drag and drop, inline choice, multi-part, multi-select, and short constructed response. Let's take a moment to look at each of these new item types along with their description. First, we have drag and drop. Students will evaluate a given number of options, either words, numbers, or symbols, and choose which response to drag to a given area. This given area could be a diagram, a map, or a chart. Next, we have item type, inline choice, in which students select the correct answer from one or more drop-down menus. Next, we have multi-part, in which a student responds to two-part questions where Part A and B are scored separately. Part B may ask the student to explain their thinking from Part A. Up next is multi-select, in which students match statements or objects to different categories within a table grid. And lastly, short constructed response. Students will give a brief explanation in their own words to demonstrate their understanding of the content. We will review short constructed response towards the end of this module so that you can get an idea of how students will apply writing in their classroom. Now let's take a look at some classroom instructional strategies that will support students. The Curriculum Instruction and Assessment Department have developed the following template to be shared with teachers to support them with 4 instructional strategies to prepare students for the inclusion of new item types on the STAAR. While in the classroom, students will have the opportunity to engage in the following 4 instructional strategies: talk, read, talk, write, interactive read aloud, card sorts, and claim evidence and reasoning, otherwise known as CER. These will each address the new item types that we just saw on the chart. While these are not all the instructional strategies teachers can use to engage students in learning, today's module will focus on these 4. In the next few slides, we will review a description of each instructional routine and its purpose in the classroom. The first instructional strategy that can support student learning in the classroom is talk, read, talk, write. The purpose of talk, read, talk, write is to provide students the opportunity to build academic language in speaking and writing based on a daily learning target. Talk, read, talk, write supports academic language in speaking and writing by following the following routine. First, talk number 1. Students will engage in academic conversation about something that they notice or wonder about a topic. For example, students may be shown a picture and be asked to respond to sentence stems such as, I see, or this reminds me of a time when. Then students will move on to read. They will read a passage, article, or a math problem and annotate the text to identify what the text says or is telling them. Next, talk number 2. Students will then talk again and discuss what they read and discuss this in academic language. They might answer questions such as what they noticed about the picture, what they noticed about what they read, or what they read actually means. Next, students will write. Students will engage in writing about the significance of the text to extend their learning. Our next strategy that can support student learning in the classroom with new STAAR item types is an interactive read aloud. The purpose of an interactive read aloud is to allow the teacher to model expert fluent reading of complex content-based text. This provides students the opportunity to focus on comprehension, new vocabulary, and connecting to prior learning. Within this instructional routine, before reading the interactive read aloud, students will engage in vocabulary building and predictions about the text. During the reading, students will engage with text by highlighting specific details related to the listening prompt. After the reading, students will collaborate with peers to connect to the text, review vocabulary, and respond to a writing prompt. The third instructional strategy that can support student learning in the classroom is a card sort. Based on the unit of study, the teacher can create cards for students to work together in pairs or groups. The purpose is for students to engage in sorting the cards into meaningful groups, labeling the groups, and explaining their reasoning for their sorting. This routine provides students the opportunity to engage in academic discourse. Here's a description of the routine. Before the card sort, students can access prior knowledge, explore vocabulary, and identify misconceptions. During the card sort, students can check for understanding, reinforce or review difficult concepts, and engage in conversation that is a rehearsal for writing. After the card sort, students can connect to prior learning, review concepts, and synthesize learning. The last instructional strategy we will review in this module that can support student learning in the classroom is claim evidence reasoning, otherwise known by the acronym CER. The claim evidence reasoning strategy is a structured response that provides the opportunity for students to think about the content they are learning and write about their learning in a logical manner. Students will have the opportunity to organize their thinking with sentence stems to prompt their writing. Within this strategy, students will begin with C for claim, in which students write a claim that answers the writing prompt. This can include inference, conclusions, arguments, and explanations. Next is E for evidence. Students will add to their claim by providing evidence from their text, data, or observations. Students will then explain how the evidence supports the claim in their last reasoning skill. One of the other changes that was discussed in Module 1 is the addition of cross-curricular reading passages within the redesigned STAAR. A cross-curricular passage is a passage that students will see and will be exposed to something that they have already learned about in other subject areas. For example, you can see a sample 4th grade STAAR reading passage about caterpillars and their life cycle titled A Caterpillar's Tale. This passage directly relates to what students have been learning in science, in which they are asked to observe life cycles of animals, to include unique stages that insects undergo. These reading passages also contain similar vocabulary to what they have learned in their science class, such as life cycle, environment, habitat, and investigate. Let's take a look at a secondary example. Here's another example of a cross-curricular passage in a world history class. In world history, you can see that students are learning about topics such as locating places and regions of historical significance, the influence of human and physical geographic factors on major events in world history, the trade in the Indian Ocean, and the opening of the Panama-Suez canals. You can see that some of the vocabulary also includes human factors, the Indian Ocean, physical factors, places, the Panama Canal, region, and the Suez Canal. Within the STAAR reading passage, students are asked to read about the Nile River in the passage Adventuring on the Nile. This details that the Nile River is the longest river in the world and flows through mountains, deserts, gorges, and valleys. Students are familiar with the content and the vocabulary that they read in this passage, since it is something that they have already learned about in their world history class. Here's an example of how writing will be included in the Redesign STAAR. You can expect your student to be writing daily in their classroom. Students will now be asked to read a passage and then type in a brief explanation in their own words to demonstrate their understanding of the content. Students must make an inference or conclusion or develop some analysis, and then students are asked to provide evidence. Students will have to complete their responses with at least 475 characters. These responses will be human scored. So you can see that writing is a skill that will be continued to be practiced throughout the school year within your child's classroom, no matter what grade level. We are excited about these changes to the STAAR assessment because they will better assess the expectations we already have for quality teaching and learning in the classroom. We appreciate your time and attention to this module and hope you have learned more about what to expect in your students' classroom. We look forward to bringing you future updates and hope you will join us for Module 3.